Hi, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Donya Williams. I'm sorry, I didn't pull it back up.
That's okay.
Oh my God, y'all, we are in. This is a show for y'all today. This is one that kind of came on the back end because originally we were going to talk to someone else, but they had an emergency, so we have rescheduled them, and we will have them on the show. But this is actually a good show.
And yeah, y'all can kind of blame me for this one because normally we kind of laugh about how Danya is fire and I'm ice. I'm the calm one. She's the excitable one. Today I'm gonna have to try my best to rein in my Edgefield spiciness
Yeah,
since
and while
I
he's reigning in his Edgefield spiciness, this is me today. So
am.
um
So
blame
what
him.
prompt, so what prompted this conversation that's we're going to be sharing with you for the next hour, and again, as always, thank you so much for sharing this hour with us, however you're doing it, is Danya looking at a contemporarily late census realized that an extended family member of ours was living in DC with his family, but we didn't know that because the census record, when it was transcribed, only listed him. It didn't list that he was married, so we didn't see him with his wife or his children. And anyway, researching his wife and his children led us right back to Edgefield, and I saw some insanity in some family trees, the likes of which I haven't seen in a very, very long time. To the point where I'm like, I don't even understand how these errors kind of happen. So today we're going to really be stressing the importance of, as genealogists, no matter what your experience level, but specifically if you're new to this or relatively new, about slowing your roll and really opening up and really checking out every single record to pull every piece of information that you can from it to make sure that you are adding that record to the right person and not someone with the same name, living in the same county or the same town, born within a reasonable age variance. And, for Edgefield, for us, reasonable is anywhere from 5 to 8 years. Because again, coming out of slavery, not all of our ancestors or not all of our extended ancestral family knew how old they were. They didn't know exactly when they were born, so we do see their ages vary. Within that 5 to 8 year time period, some, probably the children of Moses who didn't look their age, sometimes we see, 10 to 15 years, but they tend to be outliers. 5 to 8 years, the thing that actually, I love my cousin. You guys know that we have a strong bond. Donnie was so patient with me yesterday as I just vented. No, sorry, today as I vented down the phone, going, I just don't understand how these errors happen. So I'm going to start with the most egregious. Share.
And
And
I'm gonna take a
hopefully
sip
this
while
is
he's showing this.
hopefully this is displaying okay. So basically, we, researching this person that Donnie found in a late census, going all the way back, took us to a man called Moses Williams, who's born about 1841. We don't know who his parents are, but we saw purported parents for him in a number of trees, or at least I did, and it's one of the things I was really venting with Donnie about. So Moses Williams, who's born 1841, put him as the son of Moses Williams Jr., born 1791, and Ida. Now, Ida shouldn't have the last name Williams. That's a genealogy rookie mistake 101. That was Ida's married name. In as much as we don't even really know when she died, but she would have thought of herself as Mrs. Ida Williams. So Williams should not be there with Ida's name. This particular tree, I see the gentleman did correct it because I did reach out to him yesterday, who had both Moses and Ida as enslavers. I had to point out to him they were black and they were actually slaves. They were deeds to prove this. The other thing about this tree is it has Moses Williams Jr. married to his sister, Clarissa. I'm not saying incest didn't happen, but I can assure people that Moses Williams Jr. did not marry his sister Clarissa. He never married a woman called Clarissa. So that's error there that, again, with careful attention, would have become pretty apparent. And we have no idea where people have gotten the name of Eliza Kirksey. As the mother of Moses Williams Jr., his father, Moses the Elder, was never with a Kirksey, much less an Eliza Kirksey.
Now, I want to jump in
Mhm.
because I want to clarify some things. Just because I need for people to understand that Brian is not saying because they are black that they cannot be enslavers.
That's true.
That is not what he is saying. However, these two people were not. They were slaves. They were not enslavers. And that is something that was proven in deeds. And that is what he was pointing out, that they were shown in deeds as slaves, not as enslavers. So that was something that I wanted to say. And then the other thing was that Brian just also pointed out that he was never married. As far as the Eliza Kirksey thing, the other thing that Brian was talking about, it's not just paperwork that we were also using, it is also DNA that shows that there is no Eliza Kirksey in the play when it comes to Moses Jr. So I just want
Certainly not our direct ancestry. Now
right.
we do match Kirkseys,
We
but
right.
we match them in a way that suggests that Kirksey is married into one of our direct lines.
Yes.
Because I don't match all Kirkseys. I match some, and actually it's a small group of Kirkseys that I
Very
match, which
small.
automatically tells me that Kirksey is not a direct family for me.
Yeah. Very small. And y'all think I'm joking, y'all. Like, I'm not lying. This is why. This research right here, this kind of research, this research drives you to drink. I don't care what nobody say. This research right here drives you to drink. So this is a glass of wine, and I will be sipping throughout this show. So I'm gonna keep it moving.
So my next one before bouncing it to Danya, and I came across this pretty early when I was doing my mother's ancestry. For long-time watchers of the show, I started with my father. His enslaved lines were very straight, and it sounds strange to say, but they were very straightforward, and it really wasn't an issue for me to get back into like the early 1700s for all of his enslaved lines, and then beyond for quite a few others. My mother's, coming out of South Carolina in the 96th district, not anywhere near as easy. It's probably the roughest, most challenging kind of genealogical research I've ever done. And I quickly came across a 2 times great grandmother called Emily Peterson, who I'm going to share now. Oops. Share. So actually, this isn't my 2 times great grandmother. This is the other Emily Peterson. So this Emily Peterson is born about 1867. She is living in, and this is why you need to open up records and look at things. I'm just going to show you the kind of transcribed part of it. Emily Peterson, 1867, living in Rich Spring, Saluda, part of what was then known as Saluda Regiment, which is part of Edgefield County, South Carolina. Parents clearly Nelson and Sarah moved. However, my ancestor, and just to show consistency, 1880 the family moves to Norris. It's not really a township where I have much connection to directly, which also kind of was telling me with more seasoned eyes that this was not my direct ancestor. And as I'm kind of talking you through this, it took me a good 18 months, a year to 18 months to work out the difference between these two women. Okay. Okay, so share.
And just to let people know while Brian is doing his next share tab, that's how we and Brian met, through this lady Emily Peterson.
Because I wrote about her.
Yep.
I wrote about my struggle trying to work out who was my direct ancestor and who wasn't. So this is my correct two times great grandmother, who was married to my two times great grandfather, Johnny Matthews. And I will work. So basically, once they were in DC, it was fine. Still looking for a death record for her. She doesn't look as though she ever went to DC. She looks as though she died very much in South Carolina. But 1900, there she is. They're living in Callison, in Greenwood, which was more to do with her Matthews family than her Petersons. But here, this is where I expected to find her. So much of my direct Edgefield ancestry comes from three places: Gray, Blocker, Talbert. Yeah, Gray, Blocker, and Talbert. By and large, forms the bulk of my direct ancestry. I didn't realize that at the time. That came with hindsight. So what I did is I made these two separate women, and I'm glad that I did it because they turned out to be two separate people. I've seen trees where both of these Emilys are merged, and the wrong set of parents are attributed to my Emily Peterson. Milson, I keep seeing this on so many trees. Milson is attributed as being Emily's father when he's not. And again, a lot of this work has been supported by DNA matches. That other Emily that I showed you, I do match her. Well, actually, she doesn't look as though she ever married, but her siblings, I matched their descendants more or less in the kind of way that I would have expected to. They're definitely cousins. They're definitely more from an extended line than the Emily Peterson that we see on the screen. And again, it was just really kind of going through the records because, like I said, there they are. There she is with her parents in Gray. And then earlier, there they are in Blocker. The other thing that kind of sealed the deal was the kind of naming conventions amongst Emily and John's children. Both of them were naming children after siblings, and siblings and their parents. So again, it's just about being really cautious, almost conservative. If you're really not sure about who someone's parents are, just sit them to one side without parents and you just do the work using both DNA if you have to and the records to finally be able to prove that you're attaching the right records for the right people.
And the other thing, you actually have four because you left out Hibbler.
Oh, Hibbler. Yes, that is true.
You left out Hibbler. So, well, let me ask you this question: when you came across Emily Peterson, and you came across the two Emily Petersons, what confused you the most about them to make you realize that it was a mistake?
I couldn't get death records for either one of them, and the fact that they were both in Edgefield, um, and the variance in their year of birth wasn't that severe. It could someone born in 1862, someone's year of birth being given as 1862 in some records and 1867 in others wouldn't have fazed me. It was only when I really started geographically researching Edgefield that I realized just how far away Rich Springs was, even though it was in the same county, from Gray, Hibbler, Blocker, Talbert, all those places. It was a good distance. It was at least a good 3/4 of a day's ride away from where our people were.
Okay. So
Um,
then, when you found Emily Peterson in Ridge Springs, and you were starting to learn the differences between them, what records were you placing on the two of them to make sure that you differentiated them in your tree so that when newcomers came, they would be able to tell the difference? Because one of the things that I am doing right now in my tree, as I go back over, once I start doing sharing with you guys with my stuff, I'm writing notes. I'm doing a lot of stuff like that. I'm putting notes in. So what is it that you did to differentiate your stuff?
That's probably not the best example to do that with. I'll let you have your example. I will cover that with Pink Holloway because you know how I put notes in my tree, and both of those pinks have notes.
Right, right. All right. Well, let me start with me. First of all, someone had a question for you. It
Mhm.
says Gina Lewis said Brian said he couldn't find a death certificate. Still searching. Is that common? Have an ancestor last listed in 1863 in a will, but not found afterwards. I checked whole family, and she is a ghost. So wait, I can't see it. So to speak, should I give up? You can answer first, Brian, and then I'll answer since she asked you
This,
first.
excuse me. I'm just quickly pulling up that 1862 Emily Peterson. I just want to see when the last census was. Right, so the last census I had for her was 1900. So she died probably sometime between 1900 and 1910. The issue is South Carolina didn't mandate death certificates until the early-ish 1920s. The likelihood is she will never have a death record.
That's right.
I think she died before the state mandated them.
That's right. So the thing, and that was what my answer was going to be. I knew Brian was going to hit it. You need to know exactly when they started mandating, dependent upon the states that your family was from. Um, because Brian and I work so closely in Edgefield, and the things that we had to learn in research in Edgefield, and this is something that I've said to anybody that talks to us about Edgefield, South Carolina, and all those that research Edgefield, South Carolina, they can attest to, they can agree with what I am about to say. Edgefield makes you an expert in months. So, what most people take years to learn and do, Edgefield will hit you up in months. And why I say that is because you have to do things like learn the areas that your families came from. You have to know information about where your families came from, like when those areas were founded, how long those areas were founded, when the lines were drawn to create those areas, how long a township was there before it became another township. If there was parts of one particular state was a part of the other state, and how many times did it split it. Edgefield did that to us. Edgefield was brutal. It is a brutal place to research, hence the glass of wine that I have today. Y'all think I'm joking. So with that said,
The whole, I was going to say the only irony is that Edgefield still has its records. That is,
yes,
it
and
may
that's
be a
the
pencil.
greatest thing. Yes, that's the greatest thing about Edgefield is that it does have his records. It has all of his records, and what makes that so great is because they was a mean group of people, and what you weren't going to do is come in their town and think you were going to burn it. Them Union soldiers did not know who they were coming up against when they thought they were going to walk up in the Edgefield and burn their courthouse. They looked at them folks like, nope, wrong spot, hit it somewhere else because you're not coming up in here. And I'm grateful for the meanness. I'm grateful for the anger. I'm grateful for that because had they not done that, we would not be able to find what we do find. We would not be able to have what we do have. But understanding and knowing where your family come from, when those things was when they were made to do things for black people, because everything that was done for the white folks didn't necessarily happen for the black folks at the same time. We all know this.
Now, Miss Shelley Williams may be watching us, and if she is and can leave a comment, I don't want to misquote, but every state was different.
Right.
Virginia mandated death certificates much earlier. You can find death certificates for slaves starting at about 1856, 1858. You get slave deaths, slave births. So every state was different. South Carolina just kind of left it a little bit later than quite a few other ones. And like I said, that's that 1920 mark. And not every county in a state accepted that mandate. Some counties and some states had to be sued to comply with that mandate. So again, you have to research about what records are available in that county, the county you're researching, and when those records became available.
Oh, let's take it even one step further with Edgefield, because there's a mistake in my book because of this. I was under the impression that all of South Carolina did not follow that mandate until they were made. I was really under that impression. And then somebody told me, I have a person in Charleston in 1896, a death record. I was like, what? I have a person, a birth record, 1899. I said, excuse me? Come to find out, it was only Edgefield that they had to be made and forced to start actually counting their Black folks. So it's not even, sometimes it's not even the whole state, it's the actual county that may not have followed the rule until they were made to follow the rule. Because that's what happened. That is the mistake in my, that is one mistake in my book, that I, when I wrote my book, and I did not realize that. I thought it was all of South Carolina, and it was not. It was Edgefield.
But again, I can understand that because if a state mandates something, you automatically think that every county is going to comply, but then you start understanding county differences and cultures and all the rest of it. So now that I know a lot more about Edgefield, does it surprise me that it was the last one? Absolutely not. Thank you, Selma Stewart. Virginia began birth and death registers in 1853.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are the things that that we do. So let me go to mine, to just to give you guys some background on mine first and foremost. My the first one I'm going to share with you is one of my grandfather's nephews. His name is Charlie Penny Jones. And Charlie Penny Jones is the son of my grandfather's sister, Annie Yeldale. Now, the thing about Charlie is that he is not that kid, no, on the wrong way. The thing about Charlie is that he is the firstborn child of Anna and Charlie, but Charles actually married a second time. He married a different woman, but that's a whole nother issue. That's just a whole nother issue.
Sorry. Yes.
It's just a whole nother issue. So this is Charlie right here. Now, what was so crazy about this particular thing? This actually made me write this whole quick note on Facebook, because every time I figure stuff out, sometimes I just kind of I post things, and when I post these things, I'll post stuff about what I find too, because I always have people that like follow me and listen to stuff that I say. So I know that I have people that really kind of just understand what I'm talking about in one way or another. And I started talking about the fact that as a beginner, we're always doing things, when we're a beginner researcher, the first thing we do is click. That's all we do. We just click on the names. We click on everybody. We click on them just like we think that they just all that they're the only people in the DC area. Or in the area that they're with. So what I wrote was, I said a beginning researcher will just click on every record that has the same name, age, and location of the person that we're looking for. We do this as our ancestor, as if our ancestor is the only person with that name. Then once common sense kicks in, you realize that several John Does are the same age and live in the same place as yours. And now you have to go back and make sure some of those records are actually belong to your ancestor. while doing that, you begin to pay a little more attention to the census record, and you start reading the questions that were asked. You begin to get more questions answered about your ancestor. That's when they're more than what you were expecting. For most, this will cause more questions, and it makes you go back and look at something else that you've added, and so on and so on. So with that being said, this is what happened with Charles Penny. I ended up going back to Charles Penny because a lot of people, most of you don't know, I don't research anymore. Now, Brian said it best this morning. I'm actually cleaning my tree. And how did you put it, Brian?
Researching the people who are making the connections between people who are already in the tree.
Right. We're making the connections of the people who are already in the tree. That's the best way to put it. And because I'm doing that, I'm now going back over all of my grandparents' siblings, their children and their spouses, because I am one of those folks in the Edgefield area that believe that everybody is related. And because my grandparents' siblings married so many people with so many different names, and they all go back into my mom, and my mom's DNA literally matches out to all of these folks, it makes sense. So Charles Penny, I didn't know he was a married man, and I didn't know it because the 1930 census, when we first clicked on it, it only had him by himself. That first clicking, I didn't go and I didn't look at the record. And because I didn't go and look at the record, we only saw just his name, and he was listed just as a border, and it was just the yellow. But now you see it's the green, because now I've gone in, made the necessary changes. Because I made the necessary changes, he was listed as a rumor. But look, there were children listed under him, and we had no idea. Me, Brian, and Loretta made this mistake. We did not go and look at the actual record. So this is what we mean by back to basics. You have to go and look at every last one of these records, because even if you don't look at the record and you just look at what Ancestry shows at the front, and if it just shows just Charlie and not the people underneath or the person over top, because the person over top was his wife, it didn't even give the fact that he was married. It didn't give any of this information when we first looked at it. None of that. All this part was all cut off.
Because if it had at least said he was married, one of the three of us would have opened up that record to look for more information.
Mm-hmm. So now that I've done that, not only did I find out that he was married, I found out all his kids, but then I also found out that young Charlie Penny lived 3 doors down from my grandparents. That my mom knew his daughter Mabel. That Mabel, who is my mother's first cousin, used to literally spend a lot of time with my mom's sister, who was her age. These are things that I would have never known. I would have never even thought about. And had I not found this, my mother would have never thought to tell me this, because these are things that doesn't come to mind unless you bring it to them. Now, what was the other thing that happened when finding out about Charlie Penny? Well, the other thing that happened finding out about Charlie Penny is this. Charlie Penny's wife is Georgia Ann Williams. Now, remember that Moses guy that Brian was talking about? Yeah, we go back to him with this line of people. So Georgia Ann Williams is actually the daughter of Robert Williams, who is the son of Moses Williams, who could possibly be the son of the Moses Williams that Brian is talking about. We're not sure yet. DNA is not where, we don't know where the DNA is taking us. But this Moses Williams right here could actually be the Moses Jr.'s son. If he is Moses Jr.'s son, then this makes him my mother's great-great-grandmother's brother. And here we are again, wrapping around again back to Moses Sr. Definitely going right back into the fact that everybody in Edgefield is related and or connected. So, are y'all sipping with me yet?
So the Moses that you just showed, I mean,
Yes.
the DNA is showing that he is part of the overall Moses Williams Senior family group, but
Yes.
but I guess because we still have a number of daughters to find, um, it's just not definitive who this Moses is. So we know ultimately where he's going to go. We just don't know the street or the side street that's going to take us there. Um, so it's been always been my practice. I will speculate about who his parents may be, but on my tree, he does not have parents because I don't know who they are. I can't even find that Moses in 1870 to see whose land he was living on, what families were living around him. There's still so much information about him that we don't know. And every one of Moses's kids, grandkids, great grandkids, naming a kid Moses. So
No,
there's
that
just a lot
Moses
of them.
we do have
Oh yes,
we
we
have
do.
1870
We do.
for him. No, we can't find the 1870 for him. That's what it is. We can't find the 1870 for that Moses and Rachel. But we do know that they definitely name names of kids that are similar to our Moses. And there are sets of kids that seem to play in the same names of the Moses Senior.
Well, what we had worked out this morning was due to those certain names. We know that there is a Peterson connection because
Yes.
Georgia Ann or Georgiana, her name has also appeared as Georgiana, all one word. No matter how you say it, that is a classic Peterson in Edgefield, South Carolina name.
Without a doubt.
There was a Jasper Williams in that household. That is a Yeldell name.
Yep.
Hardly, I'm not going to say no other family used Jasper. No other family that I'm aware of used the name Jasper like the Yeldells used the name Jasper.
It's going
Um,
to be Talberts, but Talberts are Yeldales.
the
So,
Yeldells. It's the same. It's the same family. So
okay.
there are intriguing hints about where this Moses is going back to. I just personally don't believe it. It's Moses Jr. in Eda.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it. So there's still a lot more work, and
Right.
but so many people have now copied that off of this person's tree. That Moses and Eda are Moses born in 1840 parents
Right.
with no proof, not even the kind of proof theorem, just
Right.
nothing. They just put up there.
And you can't do that. Like, you have to have something to direct you, to guide you, to put you in that area. I mean, I know that you definitely, a lot of people do definitely go by naming conventions and everything, but using a naming convention, you use naming conventions to guide you, not for it to be the end all to be all. Naming
Yeah.
conventions is a guide, it's not the end all.
That's almost like the cherry on the cake after you
Right.
found much more concrete, genealogically acceptable proof.
Right.
That's just the cherry on the cake. And again, you won't get familiarity with an entire family's naming conventions until you really start researching that whole family. That's the reason why we have the depth of knowledge and can speculate the way that we do because of that knowledge.
Right.
And
Now,
this is one of the primary reasons why I kind of clapped to Ancestry this week, because all of it, Donia had pointed it out to me before, and I hadn't really been digging around in my own personal tree for a little while. All of a sudden, these Ancestry family tree hints are like appear all over my pages, and I did not put them there. I don't save stuff from people's trees.
oh,
So I had
clarify
a
that. Say that one more time because we got people who really think that we do that. And say that one more time so they can hear it.
I do not, and Danya does not, and Loretta does not copy things from other people's trees. So I felt a kind of way
Yep.
because doing this work, what we just talked about, the Moses going back to 1840, There were some blatantly wrong trees. And I'm like, I did not, one, I didn't put that there. And two, I wouldn't want anyone as professional genealogists, um, I don't want anyone thinking that that's how I work, or that is in any way representative of my work. So Ancestry, I tweeted you, I Facebooked you, now I'm telling you on live TV, stop doing that.
Yep.
All you're
Stop
doing is
doing that.
serving up wrong trees that people, as Danya said, will just click and copy into their trees, and then you just have an unholy mess.
Yep. Exactly. Thank you for
Um,
saying that, Brian. Thank you. Thank
yes.
you for saying that. See, y'all, I'm not the only one that can be a certain way. It wasn't me. Even though if y'all could see my whole shirt, y'all would. This shirt is it's my mama's favorite shirt, but y'all just don't know. So the next person that I'm getting ready to show y'all as to why I'm cleaning my tree the way that I am is a woman named Harriet Burus. Now, why am I showing you Harriet Burus? And this actually goes back to that Jones family because Charles Penny's father is Charles Jones. And like I said, I am doing the spouses of my grandfather's siblings and his and so on and so forth. And in doing those people, I'm going into their actual family. So Harriet is mm, let me take a sip.
Taking one with you in spirit.
Yes, because Miss Harriet is a troublemaker all day long, okay? And Lucretia, I saw your question and I'm gonna come to it. Okay, I got it started. But Miss Harriet, she pops up in the 1870 census with her husband Samuel Jones, and she has these children. So then she pops up in the 1880 census, and some of these children names then change to Parks. And we don't know why they become stepkids. You never see her married with somebody else or anything like that. By 1928, Miss Burris has passed on, and it says that her father is Abner Burris. Now, Miss Harriet, she is not alone in her troublemaking of who she is, because in 1870, Mr. Abner Burris is living above her, but he is not listed as Burris. He's actually listed as Mr. Abner Collins. So we don't know why Mr. Abner Burris goes by Mr. Abner Collins. How do you cover so much back and forth with names and stings and stuff like that? This is how I began to start covering those things. I began to start writing notes. I began to start putting notes as to the information that I was finding for the different people. So this is a note right here that I have for Harriet and where I found the information for her. So this is the Edgefield Slave Record book that is a Bible for most people out of Edgefield. This this particular book, and this is the original book right here. Show this to y'all real quick. This is the original book right here. This is a Bible to most Edgefield researchers, and we thank the late Gloria Ramsey Lucas for taking the time to do a book like this. It took her, I think, anywhere from 7 to 10 years to go through every last record in the Edgefield archives to write down all of the names of the enslaved people, going through wills, deeds, land records, and so on and so forth, to show you things that ended up on pages that looked like this. And on this page, you see people like, as I go up, Abner and his daughter Harriet. And Harriet is listed, I'll make it bigger so you could try to see her. Harriet is listed right here as a Negro girl and an unborn child. Her father is listed right here as Abner and Negro fellow. The question that we have, the thing that we as Edgefield researchers started to realize is that if we looked at the 1870 census, we were able to look at the first white family that lived closest to them, and that white family more than likely had a freedman labor contract for the people that lived on their land, and they would pop up. Problem is, this particular family did not have that information because they were not living on Martin Burris's land. They were living on somebody else's land. Martin Burris did not give these enslaved people to the land of the folks that they were living on. The land that they were living on were cartilages. So how did they get to the cartilages? So Abner and the rest of those folks that are listed there are all on this 1870 census that I have shown you guys. Every last one of them. All of these Burrises that you're seeing, there's Abner right there listed as a Collins. But all these Burrises that you're seeing, they're actually Martin Burris's former enslaved people. So now we have to take note. We have to figure out who they are, where they are, why they are, and what's going on with them. So what did I do? I have taken, every time I get a chance, I write a note. Okay, my computer moving slow now, so it ain't showing it. So at this point, yeah, I've written a whole note. There's my note about Martin Burris. He's enslaved Abner, so on and so forth. These are ways for you to start remembering, first of all, because at some point you'll forget. But these are ways for you to start remembering who these people are, how they connect to you, why they're important, what information you need to get from them, and how it's going to help you later on down the line to figure out what their connection and everything is to you. Writing those notes, utilize that space for that. And then you can, definitely like move forward and try to figure out who those people are. Because right now, like I said, technically, I'm not doing outside research. I'm not trying to pull more people in. I'm trying to fix the ones that I have in my tree. I got over 14,000 people, almost 15,000 people on my tree. I need to fix the ones that are within before I can start going outwards. Because we got Holloways and Adams that we need to deal with. And I can't fix those Holloways and Adams until I fix my people inside.
So
That way, yeah.
putting it another way, what Donnie and I are both trying to do is not add any new lines or new people to our tree. It's really focusing on the people who are already there. Because I strongly suspect that we do have some duplicates in there. But because we've been treating people as individual people, some of those individuals are going to end up being one of the same person. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do, is to hopefully DNA is going to reveal that there are some duplicates in here. And I'm going to give the last example in the final 15 minutes of the show. Pink Holloway. This is some crazy mess.
He's always been crazy mess.
But the thing is, the two of them aren't. And I'm going to explain why. So this is the first of the Pink Holloways. One was referred to as Pinkney, as in the surname Pinkney. The other one was typically referred to as Pinksy, but always known as Pink. So the one that I'm sharing with you on the screen now was married to Emma Jane, also known as Jenny Gibson. And this is what I say about notes. Paternity to be confirmed. That is much of a rattlesnake rattling its tail going, don't step on me, caution, be mindful. That's me saying, do not copy this onto your tree. I'm trying. I tried to say that stuff is speculative. DNA is pointing to Ned Holloway being his father, but because this is Edgefield, and this is enslaved Edgefield, and families preferred marrying some families rather than other families, I have to be careful. So that's why I've said paternity to be confirmed. It really does look like Ned's his papa, but until that to be confirmed gets changed to confirmed, it's all basically it's all up in the air to be played for. But I want to show you how easy it was to actually distinguish between two men born around the same time. This pink, born 1862, died 1948. So that kind of tells you there's a death record. We didn't just pull that date out of the ether. 1880. He is in Blocker. And he is there with his wife Jenny and their children. And even looking at things about whether he could read or write, because sometimes to distinguish between two people is in the same census year, it's as simple as one of them being able to read and write, one of them not being able to read and write. You automatically know you're dealing with two completely different people. 1900, he's in Talbot. I don't know what it was. People from Blocker and Talbot like going to each other's towns. I mean, they were fairly close together, but it's not unsurprising to see them in different places. Picking up a different name for his spouse, Emma. You can see all the records that have been attached. Census records, death records for children. Pulling up people's maiden names. Miss Cheatham. Again, death certificates. All saying where Papa was born. Not all of them. Most of them were saying where Papa was born. Here's a marriage record. Pink Holloway. Birth date 1865. Got married in 1915 to Lula Higgins. I believe there was some parent information on that one too. And to carry on, obituaries and other fun things in newspapers. So he was very, very well documented. You see census, 1880, 1900, 1910, missing in 1920, 1930, he's back again. He's there in Greenwood. So that's the first one. Stop sharing this. Here is the second Pinckney. This Pinckney, or Pink, married to Susie Anna Reynolds. As far as we know, he was only ever married once, unlike the other Pink, who was married twice. This one, born in 1867, believed to have died in Philadelphia because that's the last place that we actually had for him, so that's automatically saying that you're dealing with two different people. One died in Greenwood, one died in Philadelphia. 1880. He's in Blocker. Okay, I can kind of understand that there may be some confusion because now you have two Pink Holloways born around the same time in Blocker, living in Blocker. But look at this. He's not living with the spouse. I'm sorry, his parents' names are clearly spelled out. Miles, Dorcas. So that immediately alerted me to the fact that there were two completely different people. And then they overlap in the same census years, 1900, 1910. So the reason why I'm bringing these two up is because the number of trees where I have seen that they have both been merged into the same person, which suggests that they were a bigamist. The only way that these two Pinckneys, who DNA has actually proven not the same person, but in order for them to be the same person, the way they're being displayed on family trees, Pink would be a bigamist. There's no other way around it. We have string. Both of them were in 1880, 1900, 1910. This is that opening up each record is really invaluable, and I want to just show something in the 1910 census, because in the Center for Family History, I'm kind of amazed that people don't pick up on this. Oh, sorry, it's not my touch screen. 1910, 1920, two of the best censuses, and I still wish that the federal government asked this questions. Marital status. Pinckney Holloway. One and only marriage. One and only marriage for his wife, Susie. How many kids, how many years were you married? 18. How many children did you have? 7. How many of them were still living? 7. That other Pinckney in 1910 had a completely different number for marriages, kids, years married. Again, looking at two completely different people.
Well, I'm
Wow.
sorry I got disconnected. I don't know what happened, but I'm glad the show went on. I was watching it on.
That's okay. I
So
was just
yeah,
showing how both pinks were enumerated in 1880, 1900, and 1910, clearly living in two different households in two different places. And then again explaining about how the 1910, 1920 censuses are awesome because it will tell you how many marriages a couple had, how many years they'd been married, how many kids they had, and how many kids were still living. And just looking at that 1910 census for those two pinks would have immediately told anyone two different men.
well, it sounds like that may have helped Lacrissa. I'm hoping that helped Lacrissa a little bit with her question, because her question was, that's what confuses her, is when a son in the household has a different last name or something to that nature, is to like really kind of pay attention to his birth years and things of that nature, and that may help clarify. But we have definite things that problems with stuff like that. We got a lot of different um
Well, the other thing that might be is an informal adoption or an informal fostering,
mhm.
specifically depending on when the time period is.
Right. It could be a couple of things with that one that you want to look into. And the best way to actually, a lot of people don't realize, but the best way to figure stuff like that is an obituary.
Yes.
An
Although,
obituary will tell that story something severe. It will tell that story. And then the other
although,
thing,
although Edgefield again can throw up some clangers. Like I can't remember her name, but the one that
Eula,
everyone claimed was Eula.
Eula,
That's it. Everyone claimed her as her mother. Woman didn't have any kids.
see, Brian, you, mm-mm, mm-mm. We
But
don't do
Donnie is right. 9 times out of 10, an obituary is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it is. But Eula is on some other stuff. So, but it was still with Eula that we were able, because even though everybody was claiming her, it was those obituaries that really kind of broke that
Yeah.
camel, broke the back, broke the straw on the camel's back. But then Julia, because I want us to try to get to it before we get off, she said, while conducting research, how much time do you usually spend on a brick wall, especially when you can never find marriage certificates? I want to say for this, first of all, a brick wall, sometimes all you got to do is wait it out and it's
Yeah.
going to break its own self. A lot of people don't even realize that, but sometimes a brick wall will break its own self. And if you have the patience to wait it out, wait it out. I know that sounds crazy, but I've done that. Just wait it out. And something will pop up, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there it is. I get it. I found it. I have it. Sometimes you don't need a death certificate or a marriage record or anything like that to actually give you what it is that you need to make that final thing that will push you over the edge. What do you want to add to that, Brian?
Sometimes just giving something else my research focus, even though I'm doing that, the brick wall never stops percolating in the back of my head, even though I may not be consciously focusing on it. But it's like I don't know, when you catch something out of the corner of your eye and you turn and you look at it and it freezes and you don't see it and you slowly do that and it starts moving and you catch it. Sometimes that's all I have to do. Distract myself with something else, let it percolate, and then I'll think, oh, wait a minute, I didn't search here, or I didn't search there, or I didn't search this weird name variation. I'll think of alternatives. Sometimes that'll work. Sometimes the brick wall is like, no, I'm kind of happy being a brick wall. Um, I'm just going to sit here for a spell and let you work on other stuff. Like Miss Haygood. We still don't know the first name of Moses' wife. And as I said to you this morning, going back to that research with much more seasoned eyes and a much better feel for what was going on with that couple, I know exactly where she was, the time period that she was there, whose household she was in. It's just a matter of actually now trying to get those records from those two enslaving families to try to find her name.
Right. And then Yolanda made a good point when she said sometimes when the obituary has the wrong name for the father or the mother. And that's what we were talking about with Miss Eula. And but even when it has the wrong name for the father or the mother, it still will direct you in another way, because you start taking those kids and you start pulling those kids apart, and you start looking and finding the information that you need. But the DNA, because that's the other thing that Yolanda put up, is, the DNA, the death certificate, all that stuff. The DNA is your final, and that's where you start to really start to look in the direction of the DNA. And once you find that DNA, and that DNA goes in the direction that it's supposed to, that it's going, that's when it all ends, and you have no question at that point of who it is. It's nothing that you can say about that stuff. And then finally, Miss Janet Hill, how do you feel about family Bible notes?
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I treat it with if they are contemporary, and by that I mean if they're writing about a daughter getting married in 1779, and there's 1779 penmanship in ink with an additional note, like maybe first child born or something, that I will accept. But if I'm seeing something in like 1950s ballpoint pen relating to like a family member born in the 1700s or 1800s, that I'm going to treat with some skepticism. That's like a shaky leaf, green shaky leaf ancestry hint. It's a hint. I take it as a hint, and I take it as something that needs to be researched. What about you?
I do not trust anything. I'm gonna keep it real. Everything that I get, whether it's a pen, a person telling it to me, my mama, I'm being dead serious. Everything that I get as far as oral history that can look like, smell like, taste like, feel like oral history is oral history, because it can be changed, it can be proven wrong, and
Yeah.
that's it. That's how I look at
No.
it. I want it to be right. I pray that it is right, because I don't want no old person coming back at me telling me that little heifer little girl, this, that, and the third. No, I don't want them coming at me cussing me out. I don't want it. But in the same instance, it's oral. And until I gotta prove it. But guys,
And,
I wish we can
and I'm
answer.
going to say the example that Janet gave, that's something that's going to require DNA testing. So it's
Mhm.
basically a family story that was written in the Bible about a baby being, I guess, um, fostered or informally adopted. The only thing I can think of that would definitively prove whether that Bible entry is true is a DNA test.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of things, but unfortunately, you guys, we cannot go on. The show must stop. Unfortunately, we're sorry, but we will answer questions on here. We will come back. We will look. And thank you so much for being so engaging today. So
Yes,
again, I am Danya Williams,
I'm Brian Sheffy, and we will
and
see
we
you
will
next.
go ahead.
We will see you next week right here at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.